Today, Elsa, we're going to talk about the Brazil nut market and to see how that's developed since the late arrival of all the raw material. I guess we're in some kind of squeeze at the moment. Is that correct?
Yeah. There's been a squeeze building up actually since February, March, really.
Right.
Due to the flooding. Bolivia had the worst flooding in a century, and Brazil nut market is very different to all the other commodities we deal in, whereby it's all based around logistics.
Right.
And as a result of the flooding, roads down, collection being very difficult, if not impossible in many areas, this has built a big squeeze. Now the shipments are flowing. There's the roads open from Riberalta to La Paz, so there's been a lot of containers sailing, but my overall impression, talking to the general market, is that most of what is sailing is actually sold. There's very free, unsold stock that's sailing, which is enhancing the squeeze even more. Anything that is, the squeeze is obviously due to the lack of free stock.
Okay.
And that squeeze has pushed the price up to where it is today.
We've had a number of inquiries recently where people who were expecting material had suddenly discovered that they weren't going to get it.
Yeah.
And that's a problem actually, because we ourselves have very little unsold stock arriving. Yeah. Hardly anything.
You've got a mix of the late shipments due to the flooding, and you've got a mix of promised containers as a result of last year's defaults. Contracts from last season which were delayed and supposed to be shipped for March, April are also delayed as well, even further.
So we're kind of in a game of catch up.
Yeah.
And when do you think that situation will resolve itself, bearing in mind that we've actually lost quite a sizable chunk of production capacity through factories being flooded or simply not getting raw material?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain shippers that a couple which absolutely might for the season be out completely. Some of the smaller processors that might do 30 containers a year, who would normally be open in February, are only just opening now.
Okay.
So we've got a real loss in production timescale. When we were out there in March, I had felt that by June everything would be flowing and the squeeze would be a lot more relaxed, but I don't feel that that's happening. I can see the squeeze continuing throughout June and maybe even July. I think we're running minimum 2 months behind.
So not even much for sale ship in July?
No. Even some of the larger exporters out of the top ones are actually indicating that, you know, they're really tight for June, July for free to sale. So it might roll on to sort of August. So the question on the price is really determined by how long the squeeze is going to go on for, and you know, how much demand is still left out there. That's the golden question.
Well, that's the thing. It all turns into musical chairs if the stuff finally becomes available when demand has gone home.
Yeah.
And I guess if we're talking about a July shipment, then we're talking really about a safe September
physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get to the point where people just won't have it.
No.
Yeah.
Won't have it, and you know, the thing is, all the demand is done based on you know, months ago, like 12 months, you know, in terms of tenders, and so I get the impression that there is actually still quite a bit of physical demand that needs to be covered.
So already we're seeing a squeeze which pretty much is encroaching into the peak selling time, or peak packing time, let's say.
Yeah.
Do you think that this will continue all season then?
I think ultimately the price will come off at some point. It's just a question of, the golden question is when it would come off. And that's, I mean, you know, we've seen before Brazil's go up to this level and over this level, and at some point it becomes unsustainable. But the question is, you know, does it, people need to, they need to cover they're not buying speculatively, because nobody buys speculatively.
Now they're covering contracts, covering
so
sales.
It's a question of, do they actually need to physical Brazils to pack? And I get the impression that also American market's a large buyer, and they often buy at the last minute, and
right.
I don't know, but I get the impression that maybe they've been holding off, and at some point they might need to buy.
That's right. And earlier on in the year, when we went to Bolivia, we heard of a lot about Peruvian buyers coming in and buying stock in Cobija particularly. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't look like that there's a big reservoir of stuff in Peru either, and so the Yanks will maybe have to come in this year, which they didn't have to do previously.
Yeah. I mean, we know that it's a very cash. There's a lot of cash needed around October and November. That's absolutely crucial. So in any year, that's always the time that we see some sort of weakness due to the influx of cash that's needed for new crop collection. So it's a question of, will the price and the squeeze continue out till then, or it might come off?
So I guess our advice is, if you're a packer who needs to cover sales rather than a speculator, probably the better to do it now.
Take the risk factor out and cover it now.
Yeah, cover it now. We don't think the price it's moved up, but it's not hurtling up in like towards $5 or anything.
No.
So I think now's the time to just close off your books and
I think wait. on the nearby, as in July, August, if there was any sort of relaxing of the squeeze and all that, it might come off, and I can see it maybe edging off. But I can't see it hurtling back down. It would more be like a sort of 10 cents here and there either side type thing.
We might see some price decreases in December. Mm-hmm. But anything you need for the packing season, I would go grab it now.
That,
Okay, thank you.
Right.